Right, thanks Vivian. I'm Virginia Berge from the School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Very pleased to be chairing this session, and I'll hand over straight away to our first speaker, Laurence Totelin from Cardiff, who is an ancient historian, and she's going to talk about when foods became remedies, looking at classical Greece and the curious case of garlic. So, over to you, Laurence.
Yes, as you can see, I've put big words in my title, words I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to try because I'm not sure those words are the best, but you have to come up with a title. In the preface to his On Medicine, Celsus, who is a Roman encyclopedist active in the 1st century AD, introduces the 3 branches of therapeutic medicine in the following words. During the same times, the art of medicine was divided into 3 parts, one being that which cures through diet, another through medicaments, and the third by hand. The Greek termed the first dietetike, so that's dietetics, the second pharmaceuticae, that's pharmacology, and third chirurgia, that's surgery. In the paragraph that precedes, Celsus had described the developments in the art of medicine. In the art of medicine, from the time of Pythagoras, I've put the date at the bottom of your screen, who was active in the 6th century BC, to that of Herophilus and Erasistratus, who are 2 physicians active at the turn of the 4th century BC and the 3rd century BC. Whether the neat division of medicine into 3 branches was established in the 6th century or in the 3rd, because Celsus' text does not really allow us to decide either way, it still appears as a relatively late development. And the problem branch here is dietetics, and that's the Greek branch of medicine that embraces most aspects of daily life. So diet, obviously, but also exercise, bath, and even sexual intercourse, whether in sickness or in health. The ancients believed dietetics to be a 6th or 5th century BC invention, even though they could not agree on the name of its inventor. So, was it the philosopher Pythagoras of Samos, the athlete turned physician Herodicus of Selymbria, or the physician Hippocrates of Kos? But in any case, at the end of the 5th century BC, dietetics had become an established discipline, which the author of the treatise On Ancient Medicine, and that's a treatise of the Hippocratic Corpus. So the Hippocratic Corpus is a collection of some 60 texts that were written by a variety of authors, but that are transmitted under the name of Hippocrates. And this passage of On Ancient Medicine is on the blurb of this conference, so I thought I should quote it. For the art of medicine would never have been discovered to begin with, nor would any medical research have been conducted, for there would have been no need for medicine, if sick men had profited by the same mode of living and regimen as the food, drink, and mode of living of men in health, and if there had been no other things for the sick better than these. But the fact is that sheer necessity has caused men to seek and to find medicine, because sick men did not and do not profit by the same regimen as do men in health. So here we have an equation between medicine and dietetics. As aspects of everyday life, and most prominently food, became the concern of physicians, it became important to define the difference between a drug and a food. The best, or it's probably not the best, it's the most systematic ancient definition of this difference, is to be found in the Aristotelian Problemata. And the Problemata are a collection of texts in question and answer format that are circulated under the name of Aristotle. And again, we don't know whether Aristotle is responsible in any way for those questions. So the definition goes this way. A drug is the opposite of a food. What undergoes coction by natural forces is assimilated into the body, and we call it food. The nature of a drug, on the other hand, is that it is not naturally disposed to be overcome and penetrates into the vessels, where it causes disturbance due to an excess of heat or cold. So this is a very neat, very tidy definition. And the problem, I go back to the problems, but one of the problems is that it's nigh on impossible to date. So even though some of the so-called Aristotelian problems may have originated in the Aristotelian school, they seem to have evolved with time and crystallized in the form that we know today only quite late in antiquity. So this definition could be 4th century BC, but it could also be 1st century BC. We don't really know. So in other words, the question, what is the difference between a food and a drug, may have been asked at the time of Aristotle and even before, but it may not have received such a clear answer. And if one turns to the medical writings composed around the time of Aristotle himself, the closest one comes to the definition of the difference between food and drug is in the Hippocratic Corpus. So let me explain, because I know there are lots of dates involved here. So the Hippocratic Corpus is this collection of texts written by all sorts of authors, and most of them were active in the 5th and 4th century BC. So and in the Hippocratic Corpus, we find something that looks a bit like a definition of the difference between food and medicine, and it is in a treatise called Places in Man. And as in the case of every single treatise in the Hippocratic Corpus, the dating is problematic, but this is probably late 5th century BC. And this is what the author has to say. All things that cause change in the present state of the patient are drugs, and the word is pharmaca. And all substances that are rather strong cause change. It is possible, if you want, to bring about change by means of a drug, again a pharmacon, or if you do not want to use a drug, by means of food, and the word is cityon. And here, although the author of Places in Man manages to define the notion of pharmacon, so it's something that's rather strong and that causes a change, quite well, is not so successful in its definition of the notion of food, and also in defining the difference between a food and a drug. In this paper, I want to suggest that in the 5th century and 4th century BC, the boundary between food and drug, and that between dietetics and pharmacology, was rather blurred. To explain why this may have been, I will use the example of garlic, which today as well poses some classificatory problems. And then I will explore the implication this blurring of boundaries may have had on the ownership of medicine in classical medicine, and this is the question of our panel. And by doing so, I will touch on historiographical issues relating to the allegedly superior status of dietetics versus pharmacology.